I would like to introduce, first of all, to start the evening, Mr. Walford Solorzano from the San Mateo County Elections Board to speak with us very briefly about the mail-in election.
So this year, we're going to do a little something different for the election. Everybody's going to receive a ballot in the mail starting the week of October 5th. Start expecting something in the mail. That's going to be a ballot. Most residents here are already vote-by-mail voters, but those that are not, you're going to receive that in the mail. One thing that's going to be a little bit different, we're not going to have the traditional polling places that we have. But here in Redwood City, we are still going to have 5 universal polling places that you can go vote to. So you can actually not only vote at those 5, but the 32 other universal polling places around the county. So say, for example, you work in Daly City and you don't have enough time to get back to Redwood City the day of the election, well, you can just go over to Daly City and vote over there, and you wouldn't have to vote provisionally. Part of why we're doing the all vote by mail election this year, Assemblyman Kevin Mullen, he authored Assembly Bill 2028, which is basically a pilot program allowing us to do this. Part of the reason to do this is to increase voter turnout. Voter turnout in these last few UDEL elections, the off-year elections that are odd-numbered years, have had very low turnout. I believe the last election had about 28% turnout. So we're hoping that when people start receiving the ballot in the mail, it's going to increase voter turnout. And in addition, the money that we save from spending on the traditional polling places, we're going to use that money to reach out to the community and help them get out the vote and inform them of their voting rights. So once again, if there's any questions, you can reach us at www.shapethefuture.org. You can also call our office at 650-312-5222. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of South San Mateo County and our co-sponsor, the Mid-Peninsula Community Media Center, I'd like to welcome you, the candidates, and you, the audience, to this free public forum for the Sequoia High School District Governing Board. My name is Ellen Hope, and I'm your moderator this evening. Most of you probably already know the League of Women Voters is a national, nonpartisan volunteer organization of women and men. Don't be fooled by the name. Our mission is to encourage your active and informed participation in government at every level. The League does not endorse candidates or political parties. Our sole interest is in helping voters gain fair and unbiased information in order to make an informed decision. In addition to this forum, I encourage you to use the California State League of Women Voters website, which is smartvoter.org. It has a lot of information on it. To begin with, I'd like to ask everyone please to turn off their cell phones. We will take written questions only. There are League members standing around the room with cards and pens. You may write down a question and hand it back to the League member, and the question will be brought up here and asked of the candidates. Each candidate is going to have a 2-minute opening statement and a 2-minute closing statement. Each candidate will have a minute and a half to respond to each question. Our timekeeper is Shirley Desmarais, who's in the front seat up here with her paddles. There are 3 seats to be elected to the Sequoia High School District Board. There are 5 candidates, only 4 of whom are here this evening. The candidates are Laura Martinez, Georgia Jack, Carrie Dubois, Ellen Weiner, and Noria Zaslow. Each candidate will read a 2-minute opening statement, then we'll take the questions from the audience. So, Georgia, would you like to start with your 2-minute opening statement?
I would indeed. I want to thank you, League of Women Voters and the Media Center, and my fellow candidates as well, for this opportunity to connect with our voters. Gosh. The question candidates most often hear, and I hope I don't preempt anybody's questions tonight, is why are you running? And I'm going to say I'm running because many of my supporters from the 2013 election, when I came within 400 votes of winning a seat, urged me to run again. Their confidence that I have the skills, experience, and outlook to benefit our students is gratifying and inspirational. As a candidate, my outlook is strongly influenced by my experience as a public school parent. Both of my children attended Redwood City Schools and Woodside High School. I've also served for many years as a parent leader at school sites and at the district level. And what I learned is that we need to rely on common sense when searching for solutions to the issues that face our district. This requires collaboration and communication, both within and outside the district. Within the district, I think we need to communicate with parents, teachers, and staff and think about how we can make hearing them and responding to them more timely and accessible. And looking outside, I'd like to see further development of communication channels with our partner districts to ensure entering freshmen are more adequately prepared. We want students from our underfunded districts to start off on equal footing with students arriving from our higher income communities, and the best way to make that happen is to find out what they need and provide as much support as we can. We need to be talking with communities that house our schools and our employees so we can work together to manage a lot of things, including our school expansions, parking, and other neighborly concerns. And another area I think we need a common sense outlook is the path our students are following. We want to make sure that all students with ambition and ability go to elite schools, regardless of their background, and we need to make sure that kids who want to follow the community college route or find a living wage job are equally well prepared and respected. This takes me to the heart of motivation, the kids.
Thank you, Georgia.
Thanks.
Alan.
Thanks very much. Good evening. My name's Alan Weiner. I currently serve as the president of the Sequoia Union High School Governing Board, and I'm very pleased to be running for re-election. I'd like to thank you for taking time from your busy schedules to attend tonight's forum, and also echo George's comments thanking the League of Women Voters and the Peninsula Media Center for organizing this event. My wife, Mary, and I are longtime residents of the district and proud parents of 3 children who are either graduates of or current attendees of our district schools. As for me and my day job, I'm on the faculty of Stanford Law School. Before joining the Stanford faculty, I served for 11 years as an international lawyer in the State Department based in Washington, D.C. and in the Netherlands. I'm an honors graduate of Stanford Law School and Harvard University. Now let me tell you why I have chosen to devote so much time and energy to our school district over the past 4 years and why I'm now asking you to support me as I seek another term on the board. My parents were refugees who came to this country after World War II. We were poor, and I grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood in Denver, Colorado, where I attended public schools that faced challenges of the same kind that many urban schools face today. Despite those obstacles, though, I had dedicated and inspiring teachers who instilled in me a love of learning and a commitment to excellence. This background has left me with a deep sense of both gratitude and indebtedness to our community and to our public schools in particular. I've accordingly dedicated my entire career to public service and to education. That commitment inspired me to seek a seat on our governing board 4 years ago, and it motivates me now to seek another term. I'm very proud of our district schools and of the many fine accomplishments we've achieved during my first term on the board. I believe my leadership has played a big role in many of those achievements. I hope you'll agree that this record of accomplishment, together with my skills and experience, make me uniquely qualified to contribute to the board. At the same time, there's much work to be done. In our discussion tonight, I look forward to sharing with you my ideas on important issues like maintaining the core educational excellence of our schools, addressing the achievement gap, and making sure that our board remains strategic and focused on accountability and high standards. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Alan. Carrie.
I am so grateful to the voters for electing me 4 years ago. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve as your trustee. When people ask me about this job, I tell them it is the most difficult community leadership position I have ever had. My work here has been a time of personal struggle, personal growth, constant learning, and major accomplishments. This experience has made me even more committed to public education and the promise that we can create learning communities where all students can succeed. There are several things that I am most proud of that also represent my strongest advocacy at the board table. For those of you that paid attention 4 years ago, I was the only candidate who spoke about ninth grade transition and the challenges Ravenswood students faced as they entered our high schools. It was one of the reasons I ran for this seat. The governance team made this issue a major initiative, and it is no longer the case that an 8th grade student in East Palo Alto would not be able to tell you what high school she would be assigned to. I applaud the amazing work of our superintendent, my board colleagues, and the staff. I also spoke about the need to involve the broad community in our strategic decisions. We just finished the first phase of a new and exciting strategic plan. I am also very proud that we will be redesigning our continuation high school, Redwood, so that our most at-risk students will be in a full-day program and no longer released at noon. The final thing I will mention is the change that I'm most proud of. We no longer rubber stamp expulsions on our consent agenda. Now the board has a careful review of every expulsion. This accomplishment best reflects my passion for restorative justice and the belief that when kids act out in school, it is because something is wrong. It could mean a mental health issue, severe poverty, physical abuse, neglect, or a substance abuse problem, or other things that are outside of the student's control. I believe it is up to all of us to understand the student's story and then offer help and compassion.
All right. Good evening, everyone. As the appointed incumbent running for the Sequoia Union High School District, it has been a privilege and honor serving you since March 2015. As a native East Palo Alton with deep family ties to our great high schools in the Sequoia Union High School District, I want all students to reach their college and career goals. I am the only candidate and trustee who works directly with high school students and their families for career and college readiness. I was the first in my family to graduate from a four-year college. As a trustee, my goals are to continue to prepare our students for college and careers with outstanding academics, ensure Sequoia Union High School District's strong fiscal health, including overseeing our $265 million Measure A bond. I want to continue working with communities and cities on open communication and planning for transportation, development, and safety needs. And I want to support teaching excellence and maintaining high expectations of our students. As an education professional and former East Palo Alto mayor, I've participated in these forums before, and I look forward to a lively discussion tonight and thank the League of Women Voters and the Media Center for their hard work in organizing tonight's candidate forum. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll begin our questions with Georgia. The first question is, not all students will go to college. How will you support vocational training? There is a labor shortage.
Yes, there is, and there's a really heated up housing market. So my focus is on helping ease that transition into apprenticeships with our trades. As many people may know, it's hard to get someone to come out and fix your HVAC right now or get your roof done in time for El Nino. And I really feel that these are important routes that pay living wages for our community, and we need to make sure that they are accessible. I think we have a wonderful opportunity with several different organizations that offer training in the trades. I also think that it's not just about building and construction. There are other kinds of work opportunities that we need to explore as well to ensure that we have a workforce that people can use in the office as well. As someone who hires administrative assistants, I can assure you that we have a great need for people who can function in an office environment and use office tools, including Word, Excel, basic database. So I find that it would be very advantageous to really explore not just what we used to think of as vocational ed, but the whole gamut of career opportunities.
The
Alan?
same question? Is that?
Same question.
Okay, thank you very much. So as part of the strategic plan that I was also proud with, along with Trustee Dubois, to work on, we've identified the aspiration for our students for them all to complete a college preparatory curriculum. We recognize that not all students will do that, but I think it's quite clear if you look at what is happening in our economy today, if you look at unemployment rates among those who have college degrees or associate degrees versus those who have only high school degrees. We leave our students in a situation of vulnerability if we are not trying to prepare them for college. So that is where we begin. Now, that said, we recognize that college is not for everybody, and I think there's some innovative things going on in our district. And I've been quite proud to have been involved in helping to design them. Number one, we're building a couple of small schools which will have a linked learning focus. This is a connection to education. The first school that we'll be bringing online will be in East Palo Alto, and the focus there will be on design and information technology. And I think we haven't really made decisions on the second school, but the focus there would be on healthcare careers. And the idea would be that these would be careers for across the entire gamut of interest and achievement on the part of our students, for those who want to go to college and those who don't. But one thing is key, and I want to stress this. Jobs, even that are vocational jobs, are no longer the same as they were. Everybody needs to have literacy, numeracy, problem-solving skills, because even an auto mechanic's job requires understanding technology and reading manuals, and we still have to give all of our students those core key skills, and that's part of what I'm committed to here in Sequoia.
As I said in my opening remarks, this last 4 years has been a time of constant learning, and I really have come to appreciate career technical education. And I have to do a call out to my colleague, Ellen Sarver, who has been a very constant and steady voice about this type of program. One of the most exciting schools that I visited over the last 4 years was a school in Oakland, and Stanford School of Education made a recommendation of some of the best practice programs in our state, and so a group of us traveled to Oakland. It was a very exciting linked learning model. It was a career themed school around health careers. And what intrigued me about this model, it was truly a blended school where a very highly academic kid could be on that campus, a kid who's really maybe medical school bound, as well as a kid who's very far behind, maybe entered high school at a 5th or 6th grade reading level. So it was really amazing to be on one site where all kids seemed to be excited and engaged about their learning, and they were able to explore many aspects of health careers. So I'm hoping that when we design our new small schools, that one of our schools will look something like that model, because I think that is the type of thing that really can prepare kids for school, for careers, but also allow kids, high-risk kids, to try on many different hats.
Thanks, Carrie. Laura?
Hi there. I would like to invite local trades to come speak at our high schools. I think there's an opportunity there to share. I also think there's an opportunity to partner with our local labor council around community schools. I know that they advocate for providing students with community resources. I learned about that recently. I also will be serving on the small school committee with my colleague Alan Sarver, who's here, in Menlo Park, and we'll be looking at linked learning and partnering with the local businesses there. And I welcome everyone here to give us feedback and share ideas on what this small school could look like. Thank you.
Thank you. 3 of the candidates have mentioned the proposed small schools that are coming in. We have a question specifically about those, so I'll go to this next. What will be the focus of the 2 new smaller high schools, and what process will be followed to make that decision? And Alan, if we could start with you.
Thank you very much. Well, the first, there are 2 small schools that are contemplated. The first one that we're working on is the facility that would be located in East Menlo Park. And we first began by consulting our families, and we did that through the polling process, the survey process that we employed as part of our strategic planning review. We did surveys of about 2,500. We sent surveys to all of our students, but received feedback from over 2,500 families and parents, and it was quite clear that 2 themes that were very, very attractive for families in this community were, one, information technology and design, and the other was healthcare. Now, we have decided the board has recently given direction to the staff to move forward with a linked learning facility that would involve project-based learning focused around these themes of design and information technology in the East Palo Alto facility. We're focusing on that one first. I think additional community involvement involvement and participation and discussion and deliberation would be required before we really move forward with the theme for the second school. It turns out it's a pretty ambitious task to design a school. I'm excited about these schools because I think we're doing something revolutionary, something incredibly innovative for a public school, trying to bring about this linked learning theme with a project-based approach to learning, which would be an attractive alternative way, an attractive alternative forum for a lot of the students in our district.
Carrie? Yes, I agree with much of what Ellen has said. I do want more community input before we move forward on the two small schools. I was in a community meeting in Bellhaven recently, and some community leaders had some thoughts about what we should be doing, so I would like a lot more community feedback. I think the small schools are a great opportunity for our district. One of the things that I have been advocating for, and this I sort of stand alone in this area, I would like to also consider a small school for some of our most at-risk kids. One of our issue areas in our district, we have ninth graders that come into our comprehensive high schools, and they have a very difficult time succeeding. So I have been looking at alternative programs across the nation. I've been doing that on the internet. I haven't been visiting them. But there are some world-class, exciting alternative school options in other countries as well as in our country. And before we get too far along, I just want to be able to consider that as well. This year, we just reviewed our summer school information, and we had about 450 very, very at-risk incoming freshmen. Now, some of them will make it, but many of them will not in the comprehensive high school. So the research shows that very at-risk kids do better in a small school setting. And when I talk about a school for them, I'm talking about, again, world-class with lots of support, caring adults, opportunities for them to try lots of different things. So I'm hoping that we can also explore that, because it doesn't do anybody any good if our kids fall apart when they enter the comprehensive high schools.
So I serve on the Menlo Park Small School Committee, as I mentioned before. We'll have our first meeting this week. We have involved all of the stakeholders, so I'm certain that we'll move that school along. As you know, it's going to involve linked learning, project-based learning. We're collaborating with the community college district to provide classes there on site, and we're going to be partnering with our local businesses. I work at a small school in East Palo Alto where we serve 320 students between 7th and 12th grade. And we've partnered with businesses like Facebook that provide computer science classes and internships for our students, and that's something that I would envision happening at this new small school in Menlo Park.
Georgia?
Great. So I have been following the whole discussion around small schools when they first started last year. So it's really exciting to hear that there are so many wonderful developments, and I really appreciate all the work that not just the board members here at the dais have handled, but also I know Alan Sarver's been very busy, as well as staff. And I think that's fantastic. And I want to say this is such an unparalleled opportunity to work in a vibrant, collaborative fashion with the students who need the school and the communities in which the school is housed and the employers and the cities. And I think it's wonderful that we're really stretching in that area. And it's like we can craft our own version of Lorene Powell Jobs' Super School project. And I think we should take that time to really explore. I echo the thoughts of Trustee Dubois around the idea of a small school that's a therapeutic academic environment. I worked at the Children's Health Council. We had the Esther B. Clark School. It's a really effective model for kids who really, really need it, emotional distress, but who are super prepared to handle academics. I think we also need to be aware of expansion in the northern part of this area. Belmont Redwood Shores is really bursting at the seams, and I think that's a community that we're going to need to dig down deep and do a lot of design thinking with them about an appropriate way to move forward. And we can't change the past, but we can look to it for lessons. And I think when we're thinking about all of this, we need to think about the removal of San Carlos High and just bear that in mind as we're looking to the future. How would we handle that? Thank you.
The next question has 3 parts. We'll start with Carrie. How do you see working with the teachers of the district? If elected, do you plan to go to the school sites to get input from teachers? And did you seek the endorsement of the teachers union? Why or why not?
I'll start with the last question. I am most proud of my endorsement from the teachers union. I was most proud of their endorsement 4 years ago, and I am proud again that they endorsed me. I believe that I have done most of my learning from teachers this last 4 years. Teachers are closest to our students. They are the educational experts in this district. I spend so much time talking to teachers and visiting schools. There isn't a week that goes by that I'm not visiting a school in our district or even outside of our district. One of my goals this year was to visit as many of our feeder schools as possible. I also visit schools outside our county, and I just try to get as close to teachers as I can and ask them the same questions over and over. What do you need to be able to close the achievement gap? I ask them about Common Core, and so I believe I learn from them and that our policy should reflect what they need. So I will continue to do that the next 4 years. I still have a lot more to learn from our teachers, and I'm grateful that they have spent so much time with me. Did I answer all the questions? Thanks.
Pretty much.
Okay.
I've lost it.
So I think I'll start at the beginning with the first question. How will I work with the teachers in the district, and would I visit schools? I think that's what it was. So yes, I'd be happy to work with teachers in the district. I'd like to look at ways that we can support teachers. Maybe we need to look at affordable housing for teachers to keep them here. That's been a challenge. I know we've had teachers step up and lead Common Core implementation, which has been really great. I want to continue to work with the teachers through that implementation in the next several years. I know firsthand how hard teachers work. I work at a high school in East Palo Alto, and I'm happy to go visit any of the campuses in our district. And I did seek an endorsement from the teachers union.
Georgia?
Okay, so I am on a school site every 2 weeks, and I work at Woodside on the site council where I am with teachers every 2 weeks, and I love them. I think we have a fantastic teacher corps. I think they bring incredible insights when we're really grappling with some deep issues at site council around student achievement. I was raised by teachers, so I respect what they do a lot, and I really enjoy talking to them about teaching and hearing their thoughts about how they can improve their teaching practice. And they care so much about kids. They are our experts when it comes to figuring out what we need to do to move the needle on student achievement. I do go to school sites, and I enjoy going to school sites. I really, if anybody watched, I enjoy going to the football games. I love going to productions. I love everything around the teenage culture. It's just fun. I did go to the teachers union for an endorsement, and I did that as well in the prior campaign, and I was endorsed this time as well, and I'm very delighted to have that because I think it's an incredible seal of approval that I respect and understand what they do, and that I want to work with them to ensure that we can create the best, most vibrant environment for our students.
Thank you. Of course, I share the views expressed by my colleagues about how much I value the work that all of the teachers do. Again, I've gotten to know my kids' teachers incredibly well over the past years, and these are people who, as teachers transform my life, there are teachers in our sites who are transforming the lives of my children, who are shaping what they study in university, who are influencing what their core interests are. I would say, in terms of my relationship with teachers, one of the things, it's an area where I think I've actually gotten a little better during my time on the board, is to really recognize the importance of inclusion of teachers in decision-making with respect to board issues on matters that are of importance to teacher, matters that are related to instruction. And I think this district in the last 4 years has undergone a pretty significant change in our approach to curricular development, to professional development. We've moved much more in the direction of teacher-led curricular development. We have our own in-house professional development capacity led by our own teachers. I'm on our sites a lot, certainly most on the site where my kids go, but also regularly visit the other sites. I will say it's always my practice to inform the superintendent before I go to one of our sites, because I think it's important for us not to be acting outside the scope of our authority. I did not seek the endorsement of the teachers. The reason is I think ultimately I must represent the children and the interests of the children, and I see that as being like my most important core constituency. And when we're management, sometimes there are tensions between the interests of teachers and management, and I feel it's important for me to side with the children.
Thank you, Alan. The next question, having had one about teachers, we now have one from a former student. As a former Sequoia Union High School District student, I recall being not being very inclined to participate, to utilize educational opportunities because of the social environment. What are you going to do to try to ensure an environment where students feel safe participating, as simple as asking for help or sharing in class? And Laura, that's yours.
I think it's my turn, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you for the question. I think it's really important that we receive feedback from our students regularly, and I'd like to see maybe an annual survey or something that's sent out to students. I think it's important that the school district supports the whole student, the health and wellness of every student, as well as supporting them with their academics. And so this is something that I'm passionate about. In my day job, I support students after school and extracurricular activities, and I know how important it is for students to be engaged in their school community. And I personally would take on this challenge and brainstorm with staff and administration on how we can engage our students more at the schools. Thank you for the question.
So I would like to say that we at Woodside have been involved in the Qualia Institute's 8 conditions, which involves the school climate and senses of belonging for students. And I've been involved in that project almost since its inception. So I have a lot of experience in this area, and we have really, I think, built a warm and inclusive environment at Woodside. I believe that teachers play a lot. They play a huge role in all of this, in making kids feel safe and comfortable in that classroom. And I have to remind us that students, teenagers, are magical thinkers, and they really have an amazing ability to amplify social issues to such a degree that it obscures reason and it gets in the way of academics. And just all think back to your teenage years. And I think this is also well illustrated in the movie Inside Out. Show me a school that's going into prom time, and I'm going to show you plenty of examples of what I'm talking about. It is really our job as adults to help our teachers create supportive class communities that take the emotional tyranny into account so students aren't paralyzed by anxiety and other distractions in their classrooms. And I just always look at my son, who's at Woodside High School, and I imagine a big red blinking siren in his head. So even if he's sitting in AP stats class, there's a girl, there's a girl, there's a girl. And I think we need to be really I just lost my train of thought. Aware of what happens and what's going on in their minds when we're also requiring them to do very, very challenging academics.
It's a great question, and I think it's something that we struggle with, honestly. If you look at the way schools are evaluated and assessed, we don't often ask how our students are doing, and I think that's an area where we need to do a better job. I agree with Ms. Jack about the importance of the Qualia Institute, which is an early focus on trying to make more systemic at a site the focus on the whole child, the so-called affective domain, the emotional intelligence, as well as simply the academics. I do think that our campuses are safe. If you look at the level of expulsions related to violence, there's been a really dramatic decrease in the last few years, and I think we've created supportive environments. But I do think that we need to continue working on emphasizing not only academic performance, but the social well-being of our students. Our Aspirations Advocates program, which is a transition program for particularly at-risk students, is one manifestation of that. I asked to have a board item on our agenda earlier this year to really examine the Aspirations, the Qualia program, and to see whether there were opportunities for us to broaden that and to expand that approach throughout our district. And I hope that that's something that we will continue to look at. Because if our kids are not feeling well, if our kids are not feeling included, we know they won't succeed at school.
I also appreciate the question. So I have been talking a lot about the social and emotional support we give our students. In fact, in a recent meeting with my board colleagues and the superintendent, I actually quoted Madeline Levine. She's the author of the book, The Price of Privilege. I've heard her speak several times, and she talks about student success as being like a stool, a three-legged stool, social, emotional, and academic. One of the problems with the reform movement, it was all about academics. Imagine a very, very high-risk kid, you take away all the fun stuff and you double up on the academics. That's disaster. I also can think of a personal experience that I've had with somebody that I know who looked great on paper, straight A student, great tester. Nobody noticed that something was going on with him, wasn't participating in clubs or sports, very isolated. We're so focused on success in this narrow way of academics, we really need to be looking at the whole child. When I first joined the board 4 years ago, I was not excited about our board goals. I didn't like them at all. They didn't speak to me. I'm now more excited. Mental health is going to be one of our board goals. I'm so thrilled. I was hoping it would be truancy and mental health, but at least I got one thing, mental health. And so I think we'll be having some very focused discussions and support in that area.
Laura? Laura?
Oh, didn't I already answer that question?
You did. You did.
I started,
So we're
yeah.
back to-
I was like, I'm
back to
so
Georgia.
sure I answered that question already.
I'm too busy reading more questions as they come in. This has something in it that I don't understand, but I'm going to ask it anyway. And Georgia, we'll start with you this time. The board says they want the number of students completing AG to increase. However, not all AG classes are offered in the summer for credit recovery. What would you do differently if elected?
So let's just define what the A through G requirements are, and those are requirements that both the California State University system and the UC systems require in terms of core classes and electives and a specified number of years for each type of class. And you know, when I had my daughter many years ago, I didn't think, after looking at her cute little face, that when she turned 16, I'd be fighting with the school district over pre-calculus, which is considered one of the A through G requirements. But I did, because she had gotten an F, and I knew she should not be in that class. She did not need to fulfill A through G requirements in her particular situation. She was not going to be going to a UC or CSU. Now, this does not mean that I don't think students should be educated about them, and it doesn't mean that I don't think parents need to understand what it means. But I do have an issue with the rigid lockstep that every student must complete the entirety of A through G academics. I have a story of a boy who was recently accepted a senior into SLO, San Luis Obispo, on a soccer scholarship, but he was told he must take pre-calculus as a senior, and he too is failing. And his mother's quite upset because his scholarship rides on his GPA, which is tanking. So I think we need to be really careful that when we are talking to kids about their class schedules, we're looking at the student in front of us and not just falling into a habit of insisting that there's one pathway for every student.
Thanks. Well, again, I don't think that's, it's certainly not the case that every student in our district is required to complete the A through G requirements. And if you look at the number of students who do, it's slightly more than half. So it's not something that we require. It's something that our Cal State University system and our University of California system requires for admission. So it's a proxy for college preparedness. And again, we have, as a board, said we think as an aspiration or our goal, we should be trying to encourage as many of our students to complete A through G because we think getting students ready for college is going to be what prepares them to function in our society, but it's not a requirement, and this board has not made it a requirement. Now, with respect to the specific question, I'd have to actually look and ask with staff. One of the things that I think is quite important is for board members not to purport to be educational experts, and I would want to check with staff to say which A through G courses are we not offering at summer school. I know we offer a lot of A through G courses at summer school, but what I will say is I know that we also offer other mechanisms for credit recovery. In our school district, there are online courses, including Cyber High. And one of the things we've done in just the last year was to move to a credit recovery system that students who had failed a class or gotten a D in a class could complete that would be an A through G compliant class. So there are lots of opportunities for students to complete the A through G requirements if they've fallen behind, in addition to what's available at summer school.
Okay. So I really like George's answer. I think I agree with her in many respects. So having a focus on A through G compliance is fine, but I am going to always ask the question, what about our most vulnerable kids? So we have kids that enter our district reading at the 3rd grade level. So how are they helped by a focus on A through G completion? Of course, we want as many kids as possible to be on that path. We want kids going to four-year universities, but we have some kids that are so far behind. So I'm the voice that would like to have just as much emphasis on the kids that are really, really struggling. I want it to be equal. Credit recovery is not something we spend a lot of time with at the board level, and I think we probably should. And again, I worry most about our most at-risk kids and just putting them in front of the computer. Before this meeting tonight, I had dinner with somebody from East Palo Alto who works with some of our most at-risk kids. It's an exciting program. It's called the SWAG program. It's run out of our Green Street facility. It's a wonderful, exciting program, but that's one of the issues he brought up. Some of these kids that are so disengaged, and if they're sitting at the computer by themselves, it's not a really active way for them to be to get excited about their future and learning. So that's actually an area that we need to talk more about. I'd like to learn more about our credit recovery and make sure that we're giving the right type of support to some of our kids.
I work at East Palo Alto Phoenix Academy, a small school, a small high school, and we serve economically disadvantaged students from East Palo Alto. And the requirement to graduate from our school is receiving an acceptance to a four-year university. And so we require our students to complete the A through G requirements when they graduate, or in order to graduate. We have students going to Penn State, UC Berkeley, and so it does work with economically disadvantaged students. I get that students and parents want choices, and I think that's great too. But I work at a school where it's working, and so I just wanted to share that. But I also think that when we look at credit recovery, there's an opportunity to partner with a community college district. I'm not sure if we're offering that during the summer. I know the school that I work at, when a student fails a class, they can catch up and retake the class over the summer, or they can advance and take a higher level of math if they want to. But I think the question was, what happens when a class isn't offered during the summer? And what are their options? And so I think a viable option could be partnering with a community college district.
Okay, thank you, Laura. We have 3 questions here that all have to do with rising enrollment. I'm going to read all 3 of them, which will give you something to handle there. But I think they belong together. I think we get entirely too much overlap otherwise. The first one is large class sizes are a major topic of conversation among students. I am one of 2 students who don't have a desk in my English class. I sometimes sit on the floor. As class sizes increase and teachers become harder to come by due to rising housing costs, how do you plan to balance the resources and teacher-to-student ratio so that every student can excel? The second one is, I know there is an initial plan to address enrollment growth. How are you going to ensure that that plan is still going to work given constantly changing enrollment of feeder districts? And the third one is, with increasing numbers of students at each of the comprehensive high schools, how will you ensure continued access to high school athletics and teams? So there's the general plan, athletics and teams, and finding enough teachers.
Can you repeat the last one? What about athletics and teams?
With increasing numbers of students at each of the 4 comprehensive high schools,
Okay.
how will you ensure continued access to high school athletics and teams?
Got it. Thank you.
Alan.
It's my turn to begin. Thank you very much. Well, we are facing a quite dramatic increase in enrollment. Between 2011 and 2021, within that decade, we're looking at an enrollment increase in our district of 20%. So that's a very, very substantial number. I would like to say for the record that somebody closed San Carlos. I think it happened back in the 80s, so it was nobody who's
No.
Nobody who's here on this board or has served on this board. I wish we had it, to be sure. On the large class size, I think we have been doing a pretty good job. So what we've been doing, we've been proactive, we've been ahead of the curve in terms of recognizing the facilities needs. We went out in June of last year for a $265 million bond, and we have construction going on at all of our sites to be able to build the facilities and classrooms and labs that we need in order to accommodate our students. We've also been hiring additional teachers, and so the situation, I don't think it's the case that our average class size at our sites is increasing. There clearly are imbalances, and I know that's happening in my daughter's class as well, in her art history class at MA. And I know at least at MA there's been an effort to hire additional teachers, but it's a difficult time of year to hire the additional teachers. We have the resources to do it. And I would just stress, with facilities, we've included planning for athletic facilities within that $265 million bond that we passed. Field time is very difficult, but we're working on expanding our locker room facilities to accommodate our teams.
So I'm concerned about all of these things. Our high schools, our comprehensive high schools are enormous, and I have concerns. When we went for the bond, I was the hesitant voice. I didn't want to stop it, so I voted yes, but I was really concerned about making our schools larger. One of the things I really talk a lot about with my board colleagues, I wish we spent more time in retreat. So some of the other groups that I've been a part of, my past school board, San Carlos School District, and other boards that I've been on, we would get together like for Friday night, all day Saturday, sometimes Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday. And the reason we would do that is so we could really dig deep into complex issues. We don't have a lot of time to sort some of these complex issues out at our board meetings where we can only talk, for a couple of minutes apiece. So I have real concern about how large our schools are and that they're growing. So I think right now it's actually, their systems under strain. I've been spending time with community members on the campaign, lots and lots of one-on-one conversations. A parent at MA told me that she's concerned because the college counselors are just under strain. The guidance counselors are under strain. The mental health counselors are under strain. So this is something that we do need to talk about. If we're going to make our schools larger, we have to make sure that the support is in place for all of our kids. And again, that's back to Madeline Levine's three-legged stool. We can't just add kids to a campus without adequate support.
We've expanded our schools. We've started that project already through our Measure A bond, which will hopefully, it will make a difference for sure, reducing the class size at the schools. I recently met with a couple parents in the Belmont Redwood Shores district, and they're also really concerned about growth, especially in their middle schools and transferring over to the high school. So this is something that's a priority for me and for the board, and I know that that we're working on this, and I can assure you that that we need to continue discussing expansion and the growth of our district, especially in all of our neighborhoods here. Thank you.
So I think this is a really tremendously difficult set of questions to answer because a lot of this has to do with not just our student growth in our feeder districts, but also our regional growth. So I think that one of the key pieces to all of this is that we're going to need to start reaching out to our community partners in all of the 8 communities that we're servicing through the school district. I am from Redwood City. But I'm from Santa Rosa, but I lived in Redwood City for nearly 20 years now. And as you know, we are having tremendous growth in our downtown area. And that I pretty much can foresee will produce a whole crop of yet more students coming towards this district in about a decade. So I think that it's going to be really critical that not just for determining what our future growth looks like, but finding places for the teachers that we're going to need as our teachers start to retire, as we need to bring new teachers in. These are huge, tricky issues. I will briefly touch on athletics. You've all heard that I was at the football game. I love athletics. Both of my students were athletes. I myself, not so much, so it's kind of a shock. So I think it's really important that we ensure athletic facilities. I know how hard it is to schedule time on the fields, time in the pool, but it is such a tremendous outlet, as we discovered at Woodside this year when we asked our students what gave them outlets from stress. A lot of it came back to things like athletics and theater and drama.
So this next one is, I don't want to say the solution would be easier, but the question is certainly less complex. We'll start with Carrie. Most students are unable to vote in the school board elections because they are not yet 18 years old. How will you involve students in decision-making for issues in their respective schools?
So when I was first elected to the school board, I actually made a suggestion, but it wasn't very popular. I wanted to change the way we use our student trustees. So we currently have one trustee, and they're always fantastic, but they tend to be a leadership kid who's off to the very best universities. And I wanted to move to a model more like San Francisco, where they have 5 to 8 kids representing the spectrum of kids we have in the district, and those kids advise the board. They're not asked to come to every single school board meeting, but they, all of the kids give input when the board is making key strategic decisions. So that's one thing, and that's the board level. I would like to see a wide variety of kids giving input. At the site level, I know that some of the schools are already doing quite a bit. I'm thinking of Woodside, really a model, because they do student surveys. They do invite, am I right, Georgia? They invite students to participate in site council. Yep. And I think it's because they do have the Quaglia model in place. So I think the student voice is there at most of our schools. I know that the leadership kids are very active, that they attend PTA meetings, they attend administrative meetings at all of the schools. So I think it's not so much lacking at the site level, I think it's lacking at our level. So that's where I would like to see a change made.
Hi there. I sit right next to our student trustee at all of our meetings, and I'm happy to see that students are here tonight and submitting questions. In my professional career at the school where I work, I'm the advisor for student council, so I'm all about student voice, and I welcome the idea of more student voice at the schools and here at the district, and that's all I have to say.
Okay, well, I think I mentioned earlier that I really enjoy teenagers. And I also have included on my campaign committee some of our graduates from our schools, because I really think that their view, they went through the system, they have a lot to say about what needs to happen, what's good, what needs improvement. And yes, we do involve students at Woodside, and I would like to see the ability, kind of what Trustee Dubois was talking about, but I would call it like a professional learning community that's made up of students, and students broadly from across the district. And also, I agree with Trustee Dubois that they also need to be students who are across the academic achievement spectrum as well. I cannot say enough about how important it is to me personally to hear from students, because you don't know, we as parents, as adults, as people sitting in a district office, what's really going on in those classrooms, and they will give you the unvarnished truth. And I think they're very accurate in their assessment.
I think I would associate myself with really all of the comments that have been uttered so far. It's the advantage of going forth, is you get to pocket all the clever things that other people have said before you. I think it is the case that we have student participation in our site decision-making council at all of our sites, and I think that's a very important degree of decision-making. I've been impressed with the role of our student trustees. I do think there's a problem, though. We have to make sure that we don't simply say, well, we're going to listen to the 3 or 4 or 10 most vocal students and treat their views as being representative of all students, right? That's one of the big challenges when you bring people to meetings or you include them in a committee, right? You may hear important views, but we don't know whether that's a representative view. I certainly, for instance, get lots of student voice and lots of student input from my own daughter, more sometimes about dress code in particular than I would like to hear. But I don't know how representative that is. And so one of the things that I'm proud about is that when we did do our strategic plan, we surveyed our students, and we really tried to include the voices of a large number of students, not simply a group of students who were self-selected or selected by administrators or teachers. to express the views of students. I've also been an advocate of saying that student input and voice should be included in our evaluation process for our teachers, because as George has said, nobody knows better how teachers are doing than our students, but that's not a position that's been embraced yet.
Let's see here. Laura, I think you start the next one.
That's right.
What is your experience with school libraries? What role do you feel they play in education?
Good question. School libraries. Well, I spent a lot of my time after school at the library at Palo Alto High School, where I graduated from. And I think school libraries are so important. They're a quiet place to study. They're a place to work on group projects. I know for economically disadvantaged students, a lot of them come from homes where they don't have, their own bedroom or a quiet place or their own desk to do homework. And I think libraries are key to the school and should remain an important part of every school, so students can have a safe place to go and do work. When I was on the city council, I served on the San Mateo County Library Joint Powers Authority, and so I know a lot about our county libraries, and would open any opportunities to partner with the county libraries if we want to go down that road. But I'm passionate about the libraries in our district, yeah, thanks.
Georgia.
Oh, fantastic. There's nothing more relaxing to me than wandering the stacks of a library. I was just in England with my children visiting my daughter for her semester abroad, and we went to the Rylance Library in Manchester. It was beautiful. I'm very well acquainted with our libraries here in the Sequoia Union High School District. Besides passing out books as part of textbook distribution, I've worked with our librarian, Ann Ken, on several different projects. Our libraries are fantastic resources for all of our students, and I would hope that we would continue to stock them appropriately, even as we start to mix in digital medias and heaven knows what else is coming down the pike. They're wonderful places to study. I think those places get balanced with other sites around campus, but it's an important, safe environment, and they're very welcoming. And I think that it's important that we maintain them at a specific level and that we encourage our students to really get in there and explore different types of resources that help broaden and enrich their education.
Well, as a professional academic, I spend a ton of time in the library. I don't actually get out of the library as much as I'd like. And I would echo what everybody said about the importance of libraries, but I think that they actually are changing a lot. And I think the function of libraries is really undergoing a transformation. And I think we explored some of that when we were doing our facilities task force planning work in connection with the Measure A funds that we were going out to request from our community. And I'm so grateful to our community for giving us those funds. But I think libraries, obviously a lot of material, by the time our children are our ages, everything will be digital. Right. And so the function that a library serves is, I think, quite different. I think what we need our libraries to do is to provide our children with research skills so that they know how to access all of the world's information and to use the new techniques to access information. It is a great place for pullouts and quiet study. When I was an ELD, an English language development tutor at Menlo Atherton High School, that's where I used to go and work with my student or my pair of students when I would pull them out of class. But I think one of the things that's most exciting about libraries is the potential for small collaboration spaces, because when we think about what learning is like in the 21st century, we think about the importance of knowing literacy, numeracy, critical thinking, but also collective work, collective problem solving. That's what we have to train our children for, and libraries are a wonderful opportunity to have those small collaborative workspaces for students to work together and to create.
So when I was a parent in the San Carlos School District, we had a terrible budget crisis, and I was on the Educational Foundation, and we had to desperately raise money to save programs. The very first thing we saved were our librarians. They were just, we described them as a community treasure. So I believe libraries are very important, and librarians are key personnel at our sites. It reminded me of a story from last week. My colleague Chris Thompson's wife just started a wonderful preschool in Balhaven, and I went to visit her last week, and I decided to stop off at our local bookstore to buy her some preschool books. And when I walked in our bookstore, it's called the Reading Bug, a former school librarian was there, and I was so glad to see her because I don't know much about preschool books. So I asked her for advice, and she picked out the very best books for me to take to that school. So I think that that librarians should remain a key part of our program.
Thank you. Okay, we're back to Georgia. Our school district offers an exceptional parent education program, yet we are not seeing many of the proven research practices taking place in our school. For example, limiting homework loads, eliminating zero tolerance policies, etc. How can our district encourage teachers, administrators, and board members to embrace proven practices that actually support adolescents?
So I'm going to take a little twist on this and equate some of what this question is asking about to student stress, because a lot of that load really translates into stress. And how do we get the district to embrace those new programs out there that are suggesting we take a step back? I think that there needs to be a lot of deep conversation about the philosophy and what we're trying to do. I think when we're talking around, we briefly hit on the challenging coursework, we need to be really realistic about what that all means, especially in a student's life. At Woodside, we took a look at the homework expectations and model students and what that looks like for each student in a night, and it made the teachers really go, gosh, I had no idea this was happening. So we need to encourage the teachers to start talking to one another across the subject areas so that they are aware of what's happening when they're assigning those large projects or assigning for that test the next day. I think that the district needs to acknowledge that that's a problem, that we're piling up certain students with way too much homework. We also need to be aware that some schools have block schedules and some schools don't have block schedules. And so what does that mean in terms of how students are supposed to be juggling all of this? And I agree, we have a wealth of research and information around us, and we should be inviting some of those professionals in.
Thank you very much for the question. I had my bi-weekly meeting with the superintendent to talk about agenda issues, and one of the things that I discussed is what is the best way for us to begin to get a handle on this question of homework stress. Now, I will emphasize that I'm somebody who believes very, very strongly in rigor, and I think our kids are really, really capable of rising to the expectations that we set for them. So I don't think that there should be any effort in our schools to diminish the level of rigor, but I think we've gotten into a place where there is a false equivalence between workload and rigor. I teach freshmen. I teach a freshman class at Stanford, and some of the things that I see in some of the AP classes that purport to be college preparatory homework really just seem to be asking students to run this incredible gauntlet of tedious busy work and memorization of information, which, in fact, they could just Google and look up. I mean, this is not the way we learn how to do critical thinking. So this is something I'd very much like to look into. In terms of zero tolerance, the one thing I would say is that's actually not a policy in our district. We don't have a zero tolerance policy, and that's part of the reason why we've been able to reduce the number of referrals and suspensions and, above all, expulsions so much in our school district. We do discipline students when there's a statutory requirement that we expel them for sale of narcotics, but we don't have a zero tolerance policy. If kids are merely caught possessing drugs, we try to tailor a discipline accordingly.
So homework is not my biggest concern, and it could be my own view. I have a 7th grader at Terra Linda and I have a junior at Carmont, and their homework load is manageable. And it could be that they're not my junior is not overloaded with AP classes. So I would say that their homework, the amount of homework they're doing is probably just right, and I don't want to micromanage teachers. I'm much more concerned with our focus on grades and testing. I think that is what's causing more stress than anything else. When our district started sending out daily notifications of grades, I thought it was a mistake. I couldn't believe it. And the reason I thought it was a mistake, I've gone to the Challenge Success events for 10 years. I am a disciple of, again, Denise Pope and Madeline Levine and Brad Sachs, and I've been in so many parent ed meetings. It is wrong to be focusing daily on grades. So that's where I would start. And I know that many districts are using School Loop and sending grades home daily, but it's wrong. And I think sometimes in education, even if it's popular, even if it's what parents want, I think we need to stand up and say, this is not good for kids. I asked my junior recently how stressful it really is at Carmont. His answer was, Mom, it's worse than you think. When kids get a B, they think their life is over. And I think that's a true statement. There's an amazing amount of stress at our sites, and that's something we need to work on.
I'd like to just begin by saying that the health and wellness of our students is very important to me. I think our board does need to have an open conversation about this, so I'm glad to know that this is going to be agendized soon. I don't have much to add other than, I agree that we have a really good parent program, but I think this is something that we need to have an open conversation about.
Okay, actually, I think we can squeeze in 2 more questions, because I have 2 questions left. So starting with Alan, I'm an employer of high school students, but I found we don't have a work experience teacher. How can we help match students with employers?
A work experience.
Work experience teacher is the phrase here.
Well, the one thing I would say is we have academies at all of our sites that have a kind of a career orientation. I myself have done work with the academy at Sequoia, which is a healthcare academy, to try to put them in touch with professionals, colleagues, friends of mine at the Stanford Hospital, to see about arranging internships. And so this is, I think, an area where we need to continue doing more. Obviously, a big focus of our small school in East Menlo Park will involve relationships and communication with local employers. So I think this is an area where members of the board can play a particularly significant role. One of the things that we bring is connections to our community. Whether there's a structural role for us to play in terms of having it's just hard for me to imagine how you'd have a single teacher who would be a resource at a single site who employers could go to and say, I need somebody who has the following skills. Our comprehensive sites have 2,000 students at them, and so I think that's a difficult arrangement to try to imagine.
Yeah, so I don't know what a work experience teacher is. I guess, again, I still have lots to learn.
It's a new phrase for me.
So I have more concern with the kids at Redwood, or at least I had a concern. But from what I've heard, because of the economy right now, there are a lot more jobs for kids, and so it's easier for our students to find jobs if they want them. I think transportation is more of the issue. And I know at Redwood they do have teachers that help them, with employment. And so, again, I don't know the answer to this. I don't know how it really impacts the comprehensive high schools, but whoever asked that question, I will find out.
Laura.
I'm a huge advocate for student internships. Where I work, I have arranged internships with local companies in the area over the summer. These opportunities are life-changing for our students. It allows them to explore their passions and grow. So I have lots of personal stories of students who have gone on and done a summer internship, and the fall when they return, they're a totally different person. And so I'm a huge advocate, and I would personally, as a board member, reach out and talk to my networks about linking up with the local high schools and providing these opportunities for our students.
Well, I guess I'm feeling really old because I actually do know what a work experience teacher is. And we had one at my high school in Santa Rosa, and maybe it's just because of where I grew up and the rural nature of Santa Rosa at that time. So I think it's a valuable thing to think about, because I do believe that students should take jobs, and I mean that across all socioeconomic levels. My students both had jobs. My son is what we would like to call a pool engineer, as well as a golf course groomer. So if you know what that means, he would get hit with the golf balls, but it was fun, in the cart. I think that It's really hard, actually. When my kids wanted to go get their jobs, it was hard because there was no central place for them to go, and there wasn't a posting mechanism for them to find out what jobs were available out in the community. And so you sort of take jobs where they come. And it is a really important part of adolescence, learning how to hold a job, learning those kinds of skills and the responsibilities that come with it, whether you lose the pool key or you find the pool key. These are important things. I really do believe that this is an area that we could focus on. I think it's important. And so I would encourage us to start thinking about it.
Okay. I'm going to change the rules slightly and ask for 1-minute answers to the last question rather than a minute and a half. We'll start with Carrie, and the question is, what is the most pressing issue for our district?
To me, it's our most at-risk kids that we're not serving well. I know Ellen Weiner has mentioned the Aspiration Advocates Program. I don't think it's enough. And I actually believe for our most at-risk kids, the kids that are at risk of dropping out and failing and disappearing because they're truant, that the board needs to set direction for those kids. That has been my biggest frustration since serving on this board. We have to set direction. And if we set direction, that means we also set success indicators, and we need to have feedback often on those kids. So Aspiration Advocates was put in place by an organization that when it was presented to the board, now I could be wrong, by an organization that does wonderful work at Woodside High School, but when it was presented to us, we were told they had no experience with the most at-risk populations. And in our community, we have lots of organizations who do have experience, and we have teachers who have experience, like Nancy Staves at Woodside, like Mary Dunn and Tina Dress, who work with independent studies teachers. We have many, many teachers in our community who know our most at-risk kids. We have nonprofits who work with those kids. We should have brought them in to develop a program, or it could mean a small school for our most at-risk freshmen.
I would say growth and development in our region because it affects our schools, it affects our teachers, where they live, it affects our class sizes. I mentioned in my opening remarks that it's important to work with communities and cities on open communication and planning for transportation development and safety needs. And I'd like to see more of that, especially an example would be on El Camino Real, where there aren't sidewalks or safe bicycle lanes, and we see traffic congestion, and we want to be able to encourage kids to bike or walk to school, and we need to have conversations with local cities and communities about that. So I would say that's the biggest issue for me is growth and development in our region, which will affect our schools.
Thanks, Laura. Georgia?
So I'm going to say my first issue is about teachers and making sure that we have the ability to retain as well as hire new teachers, especially as our teacher corps starts to retire. And again, that's a regional issue, and it goes back to housing and what can we do regionally to work on the overheated housing market. I think the other issue for me is really, we talked a little bit about it, it's finding that right balance between challenging and stress-inducing course loads for all students. I'm a parent, so this really matters to me quite a lot. I think that we need to think about some of the policies we have in place right now where we are forcing kids into classes, and I am using the word forcing, that are too challenging and not allowing them to move out of those classes when they aren't feeling successful. Because the minute you start taking away a child's feeling of success, you take away their motivation, and I think that's a very important thing that we need to focus on.
Thank you. I was hoping to pull up some data, which I thought I had. So I think that the most important, look, I'm old school in this regard. I think the single most pressing issue that we have as a school district is making sure that we're educating our children. That's our core mission. And I think we're entering an era where we're implementing a new curriculum, Common Core standards, and I think we need to think about new, better ways of teaching the fundamental skills that our children need to survive in the global economy today. We need to focus on literacy. We need to focus on numeracy. We need to focus on critical thinking. We need to focus on collective problem solving. The board will be receiving a presentation on our initial tests, and not enough of our students actually are proficient in these skills. We have a lot of additional work to do to improve. So for me, the most important thing we can do as a school district is to make sure that we are educating our children and giving them the skills they need to function in our society.
Okay. We will go to the 2-minute closing statements. Laura, can you start that?
Sure, I can get us going.
Great.
I'm very proud to have a broad community support across the entire school district. Thank you to those who are here tonight and for caring about our students and the Sequoia Union High School District. I want to prepare our graduates for a global society and welcome your support. It's been an honor serving all the students and families in the high school district, and it will be an honor to continue my service. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Laura. I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. It's a Wednesday night, and I really appreciate it. And I thank, of course, the League of Women Voters for helping facilitate this discussion. And I just want to say that let's do the things that we know work. We know what they are. Our schools must prepare every student for college or a skilled job after graduation that pays a living wage. We need to provide for high achievers, the kids in the middle, and the students at risk, all of them with the same equal care and attention. We must offer every student a chance to shine in the arts, athletics, robotics, or whatever it is that inspires them to explore, learn, and dream. And we need to collaborate with our middle schools to make sure requirements and expectations are aligned so students start off confident and ready for their freshman year. We need to be responsive and accountable to parents, taxpayers, and our district communities so that we have full transparency and all perspectives are heard and balanced. We have to engage in teacher training that is teacher-driven and teacher-led, tapping into their expertise as a community of inspired learners. And on the topic of teachers, as I've just said, we need to address the teacher shortage before it becomes a crisis and find solutions for keeping teachers in our overheated real estate market. I say let's renew the promise of a high-quality education for every child and set our sights on outstanding schools that mirror our community's needs, hopes, and dreams. So I ask for your support of my candidacy to the Sequoia Union High School District and join with some of my supporters like Congresswoman Jackie Spear.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for coming out tonight and for participating in our democracy. And I'd also like to actually thank everybody else on the panel because I actually believe that the caliber of conversation tonight was extraordinarily high. And so you can rest assured that no matter who you return to the board, you're going to be well represented. So thank you all for the discussion tonight. I'm running for re-election to the board because I believe that nothing is more important to our society's future than the success of our public schools. Our schools are not only important for maintaining America's leadership role in the world, but they're also the engine for social mobility in our society. Through strong public schools, we ensure that if you're talented, if you're hardworking, you can succeed no matter what your race or religion, no matter how much money your parents make, o si la familia habla español o inglés en la casa. We have talked tonight about a number of important policy issues, but apart from specific policies, I want to stress two general approaches that I bring to my work on the board. First, I remain committed to keeping our board effective and strategic in providing real leadership for the district. All the candidates here obviously care deeply about education and our children, but a board member, I think, must do more. Our school district is a large and complex institution, and educational policy today is a complex business. Board members, after all, are not the educational experts, and I don't think we're the ones who should be seeking to design educational programs. Rather, our job should be to articulate the core values of our community, to encourage our staff to embrace innovative approaches rather than just doing what they've done before, to set clear strategic priorities, to make sure we have the best people and procedures in place to implement those policies, and above all, to insist on accountability, to constantly and critically evaluate whether our programs and approaches are working or not. We need to assess what's working and what isn't, and when necessary, to make tough decisions to change what's broken. Second, throughout my time on the board, I've always evaluated policies and programs based on what is best for the children. The test should not be whether a program or policy is convenient for us as board members, for district staff, or for administrators. We must evaluate our work based on the impact it has on teaching the critical skills that they need to succeed in today's economy. So together we can build a world-class school district, and I respectfully ask for your support in the election this fall. Thank you.
People who know me well would describe me as an agent of change. I have also been described as a person who at times is on the road less traveled, and it takes time for others to understand what is necessary to carve a new path. Over the years, I have been part of some amazing work in the broad community and in our public schools. I have learned that to do something really big, great minds must come together. Although at the beginning I have sometimes stood alone, the success that I have had started when one person stepped forward to help. I would like to give an example of where I stand alone on this board today, and it helps to describe how our board culture needs to change. 4 years ago, for 4 years, I have asked that we have an agenda item of foster youth at one of our board meetings. I haven't asked for many agenda items, but I've requested this particular topic about 8 times. My suggestion has been to have an outside group advise us on how we could better support this group of students. I have suggested speakers from CASA, the County Foster Youth Liaisons, or California Youth Connections, where we could hear directly from emancipated youth. Some may wonder why I would keep making this request when it is clear my board colleagues do not have any interest in this topic. I keep asking because I have been involved personally with foster youth advocacy, and I have met many of the kids who are in the foster care system at all of our schools. I have learned that foster youth have some of the greatest challenges of any of the students in our district. Some may say that there are so few kids, so it's not worth the board's time. I would say we should not determine our most important topics by the number of students we can count. The challenges of public education lie in the small numbers, the silence, and the students who are invisible. By learning how to serve foster youth better, we can then succeed in serving a lot more kids. So for 4 years, I've asked for this agenda topic, and for 4 years, I've been denied. By not spending adequate time together in board retreats and not having a fair rotation for board president, important topics may never appear on the board agenda. As board members, we represent our diverse and complex communities, and each board member adds value. We are not all strong in the same areas, and we can always learn from each other. I will keep asking for this agenda item because I know the kids.
I'd like to thank all the participants this evening. I think you've been a great group. I'd also like to thank the audience for coming. I'd like to thank the other league members who helped put this together. It's not a one-person project. And I'd particularly like to thank the students who came. There are a good many of you in the audience. I think it's terrific. Keep up the good work. And remember, if you want more information on these candidates or any other candidates or issues, the league site is smartvoter.org, and there's huge amounts of information on it. Thank you so much.